Bitcoin is a bubble, the tulip mania for the internet age, a price that runs up on hype then pops for good like every mania before it. That's the claim. And the shape is real. The price climbs fast, then falls hard. But a chart shape is only half a bubble. The other half is what happens after the crash. That's where the comparison comes apart. Start with the record. Bitcoin has crashed more than 75% 4 separate times since 2011. 93%, 86, 84, 77. Every one looked terminal. Every one was followed by a new all-time high. The recoveries took time. 13 months at the fastest, 38 at the slowest. But they came. While the price was collapsing, the network underneath it never stopped running. So before we call it a bubble, it is worth asking what a bubble actually is. Not what it looks like, what it is. Because the word carries a meaning most people skip straight past.
When people call something a bubble, they usually mean the chart. But a bubble has a real definition, and it has almost nothing to do with how fast the price went up. A bubble is when a price floats free of any underlying value, lifted by nothing but the belief that someone will pay more tomorrow. No use, no cash flow, no floor beneath it. Just the next buyer. That's why the crash is permanent. When the last buyer is gone, nothing is left to catch the price. It does not recover because there was never anything underneath it to recover to. A bubble is defined by what never comes back.
So that's the definition. Now hold Bitcoin's 4 crashes up against the bubbles people actually have in mind and watch what splits them apart. The famous bubbles crashed about as hard as Bitcoin did. Tulip bulbs collapsed in 1637. John Law's Mississippi scheme wiped out a generation of French investors in 1720. The dot-com NASDAQ fell about 78% between 2000 and 2002. Bitcoin's crashes sit right next to them. 93%, 86, 84, 77. On depth alone, you cannot tell them apart. That's the whole reason the comparison sounds right. Then add the one thing depth hides. What happened next? Tulip prices never came back, not in almost 400 years. The Mississippi scheme never came back. The NASDAQ took about 15 years to reclaim its high, and many of the companies that drove the peak went to zero and never returned. Now, the Bitcoin bars. After every crash, a new all-time high. 13 to 38 months, 4 times over. Same crash, opposite ending. The crash was never the tell. The recovery is.
Look at the case people reach for most. Holland, 1637. The story everyone repeats is that a single tulip bulb traded for the price of a house. Historians still argue over how often that really happened. What they don't argue about is the ending. Early that year, the bids stopped, and the price fell to almost nothing. Here's why it never recovered. Anyone could grow more bulbs, so the supply had no limit. And a tulip does nothing. It is pretty, and that is all. No network, no use, nothing to rebuild the demand once the novelty wore off. Nearly 400 years on, tulip prices never came back. Same ending for John Law's Mississippi scheme in 1720. Gone for good. That is what a real bubble leaves behind. Nothing.
So why does Bitcoin keep coming back when a real bubble can't? Start with what a crash can't touch. There is no headquarters to close, no chief executive to resign, no single regulator that can switch the network off everywhere at once. When the price crashed 93% in 2011, the network kept settling a block every 10 minutes. When it crashed again, the hash rate dipped, then climbed straight back past its old peak. The crashes did not reset the network. They pruned it. Now the mechanism a bubble can't escape. In most manias, supply expands to chase the demand. More bulbs planted, more shares printed, more houses built. When demand turns, all that extra supply sits on top of the price and holds it down for years. Bitcoin has none of that. The supply is fixed at 21 million, locked in code. After every crash, the supply is exactly what it was before. No overhang, nothing pressing down. And something is left in the wreckage every time. Each crash clears the speculation and leaves real infrastructure standing. The 2017 crash left mature custody and better tools. The 2021 crash was followed by regulated US spot ETFs in January 2024. Every cycle built more than the one before. One limit on all of this, and it's a fair one. None of it proves any particular price is the right price. A network that survives is not the same as a network that is correctly valued. The question here is whether Bitcoin behaves like a bubble. Whether it is worth what it costs on a given day is a separate question.
There's one more place the bubble story breaks, and it depends entirely on where you are standing. From inside a stable currency, the bubble looks obvious. From inside a failing one, the same thing looks like the way out. In Argentina, inflation hit 211% in 2023. There, holding the local peso is the speculative bet. People buy Bitcoin to stop their savings melting, not to gamble on a higher price. In Nigeria, person-to-person Bitcoin trading kept growing straight through the central bank's currency controls. That demand does not care what the price chart is doing. And demand that does not depend on the price is the one thing a bubble never has. So the real question was never whether Bitcoin's price can crash. It has, 4 times, by more than 3/4 each time. A bubble is defined not by the crash, but by what's left when the crash is over. Tulip money left nothing. The Mississippi scheme left nothing. Many of the .com names left nothing. Bitcoin came back 4 times, and each time the network underneath was bigger than before. Bubbles leave wreckage. Networks leave infrastructure.